Blessed Shabbat and good morning to 12 tribes scattered abroad and to all who wish to share in the knowledge of our contribution. We invite you to listen and to receive the engrafted word, which is able to purify for we are considering the lesson of our Mashiach in the day of his flesh in the set apart land, our homeland, that some robbers think to acquire to themselves until the whole fiasco is done with. But in dealing with his apostles, firstly, and the crowd of followers and believers and haters and so forth, the Mashiach, as the good shepherd caring for his sheep, taught them wonderful lessons, every one of them meaningful and absolutely necessary. In Matthew chapter 6 and verse 6, he begins to speak to them. And I believe it is safe to characterize his wording or his teaching as a gift of knowledge to a special group of citizens, a special group of people that we know as fathers and mothers, or to the father and mother of the nation. So since the father and mother, like Adam and Hawa, were our progenitors, the scripture said the Most High changes not. And in him, in the Most High Yahweh, the Mashiach, is the same yesterday, Shakataba, today and forever. And in the days of his flesh, he laid down the Torah. That is, he made the record of his teaching available to his apostles, and so coming on down to us, in spite of the errors put into the texts by our chief enemies. Chapter 6 of Matthew, verse 6, it says, but you, but you, Yasha Allah, and to those of the nations that desire and have made up their mind, their minds that they would inherit this kingdom. Whatever part the Mashiach will give them to conduct themselves in furthering. He says, when you pray, go into your room. First instruction, go into your room. Is it always necessary to go into your room when you pray? It appears here that this instruction to go into your room when you pray depicts a prayer life or a conduct of prayer. Praying is of a serious matter and ought to be taken so. Having shut your door, pray to your Father who's in secret, who's in the secret place, that is, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. All right, then. So, this short passage here um, is so packed with power for the believer, for Yasha Allah, and those of the nations who in this sealing time desire the gift of salvation. We're given instructions for the end time. This is the sealing time. And we are being taught by the revelation of Hamashiach, our high priest and Malak, our king, who has demanded of us that we occupy until he comes. And the old folks used to say, whether he come morning, noon, or night, be ye ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. And so we want to encourage all in Yasha Allah, particularly because you, the remnant, are the apple of his eye. And except it was to be for you, it wouldn't be. You got to know your place, Yasha Allah, and know your worth. Although you have been denigrated to the offscouring of the earth, as Apostle Paul shows us how we have been viewed and treated as the offscouring, the dirtiest of the dirty, and this the smelliest of the smelly. viewed as having no worth, and even told that much, that we're worth nothing. But yet, the principal people who was busy managing this characterization of us, seeking to assure us that we are nothing, that we are worth nothing, have gone to so much trouble in their preparations and um, orders, the ordering of of matters of retention. They want to retain us who are of no worth, no value, but I think they die by the fact that they would have us or no other. And supposedly they couldn't let themselves be made aware that we see this. And more so now, we fully understand this. That as the apple of Yahweh's eyes, the redeemed of the Master, Mashiach Kutabalwa, the Master Yahushai, Yahushua, Yahshua, our high priest and Malak, in the book of the Revelation, the one who sets before us an open door when all others in the earth have shut doors in our faces. Yea, they shut the doors and had them secured from us entering into them except by their permission. But they would have us um, moving by their orders and fulfilling their will to be slaves, enslaved by them. We who are kings and priests unto the Most High Power and unto Hamashiach, our high priest now, and Malach. And we've come to this moment in time that the king has sent out a memo requesting that his set apart ones, his redeemed, be set free and make their way home to him, towards him. And we see the raucous in the earth by this proclamation of the scriptures, and even as proclaimed by Mr. Donald Trump of the so-called Republican uh, Party of America in a few years past when he made the declaration that slavery was over, done with. That was it. The voice, the voice that wakes up the dead, Shamayaka, at the return of Hamashiach. That was the voice, or that is the voice, who called for his own, for his set apart ones. And Satan himself, the fallen one, who set up the whole engine of slavery and all the protocols attending and assisting the matter, from the time of the proclamation, has been scampering throughout the earth, day and night. And, he have got his people following the same pattern, like chickens with the head cut off, lost, with all their braggadocious pronouncement of being smart and having knowledge, yea, having nuclear power on their side, and with their allies, likewise, all power packed with dynamite. You remember Kid Dynamite in the movie? I think it was good. I mean, the sitcom, I believe it was Good Times, if I'm right. But Mr. Dynamite, JJ, you know, when he came into the room, he proclaimed himself Kid Dynamite. And the Mashiach has committed unto us a Torah of dynamite, if you will, to proclaim his preeminence of sonship, high priest, king, headship, and all the important ships that go with this description. So it was not surprising to see that the great Edomite America, the great Germany, the great England, the great Italy, the great Norway, the great France, and all of them countries of the Edomite habitation and points of warfare and enslavement of the 12 tribes. And they became very unsettled. And, they put on more threats. But we are told, we were told already, pray to the Father in secret. Earlier, as we were dealing with our 400 years enslavement, and the brutality suffered by us, the breaking, the busting, the tearing up, the splitting apart, the destruction of the marriages of Yasha Allah, occasioned by, that is caused by the desire of Edom to see us without compass, guidance, and wisdom to govern ourselves and make progress in our individual personal development and our national thrust. But you, when you pray in your struggles, enter into your secret place and pray to the Father. We still must do that. As much as doing that before now has resulted in the Father's good pleasure to lead us along. Like the song says, in shady green pastures, so rich, so free. Mashiach leads his dear children along. And you know some of it. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow. And yet, Yah gives a song in the night season, all the day long. And so, having now come to this experience that we went through within the last 2-3 weeks, maybe, where Satan has sought to bully us into believing that enslavement was still in force upon us. He and Levi and Esau, of course, the leaders. I mean, they were working some stuff and trying to reverse the prophecy that the Mashiach states in Romans I believe it's Romans 10. If I'm wrong, pardon me. I don't have too much mobility now at the moment, so I'm kind of conserving my moments. But in the book of Romans, and I think Isaiah, we are shown that the Most High would do a short work. He would do a work and cut it short in righteousness. Here he is talking directly about the time of enslavement. He would cut it short. And so while Edom and Levi and all the haters of 12 tribes were expecting a full run of this enslavement exercise, I think the Most High cut it short by, I think it's by 1 year. In Babylon was 70 years exactly. And whereas we ourselves are still here in Babylon, but the veil has been lifted, and the principles of conducting the enslavement process, all their foundations have been dissolved, and all that they have tried to do, even as we have experienced within the last couple of weeks, I think, where Satan, through the Levites, the evil, filthy Levites, uh, has had himself set up through Christianity. Christianity set him up, in their English bastard word, as God. That's his name, God. That's Satan. God. That's Gadriel, according to the book of Anukh. And so maybe if we didn't have Anukh to share with us how the name changes began and what they were previously, he might slide by, with his name, God, that he manipulated the letters a little bit to achieve forgery and create a cover talking about Satan, according to the book of Anukh. When we see the fallen ones and they're set up as the watchers over the earth to corrupt the daughters of man and bring the earth into disorder. I mean, it seems that if we didn't have the book of Anukh to tell us about this name change, we would have been, I think, in a we would have fallen into a disastrous state of affairs, because by Christianity changing the name and using God to represent the Creator, the Levites, fallen priesthood of the nation of Yasha Allah, who gave themselves unreservedly, that portion of them that gave themselves unreservedly to Satan and Esau to work on righteousness, they moved out of their place of priesthood, and in moving out of their place, they allowed Gadriel to slip by them into their place, into their authority, and to assume headship over the nation. If you could have seen that, I think you're beginning to see it. That the Levites gave up their place of priesthood and service unto the Messiah to make room for Satan to come and dictate to us that he is the high priest now. You have a diabolical, despicable piece of garbage coming to assume representation over a set apart people, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, no less. But the arrogance and the filthiness of Gadriel, Satan, and Levi and Edom, how can we fail to give, you know, acknowledge your credentials? These are the principles that you live by, and uh, uh, these are the principles that you use to order your kingdom, to throw down the name of the Most High. Wow. In the book of Samuel, oh, my movement is a little bit constricted. I have difficulty at the moment moving. So I want to show you the scripture in Samuel that says, because a hand is on the throne of Yah, therefore Yahweh will have war with Amalek forever. That's war to the end. As the Edomite Gordon Soley used to say in championship wrestling, and fall to a finish. And the war between Yasha Allah and Esau was a fall to a finish. We're near the finish right now in the sealing time. And so we encourage, firstly, the bedrock of our society, men, women, fathers, and mothers. Like the apostle says, pray always, pray without ceasing. Be always instant in prayer. You might not feel like it sometimes. Indeed, many times you might not feel like it, or not that you do not feel like it, but you have this discouraging presence around you from Gadriel and the demonics, pressing in their will against you and me to deter us from exercising our right and privilege to pray. You remember the song that used to be sung in the Christian churches that was setting up for our destruction, but they sang a song that many of us loved, Sweet Hour of Prayer, Sweet Hour of Prayer, that calls me from a world of care, bids me at my Father's throne, make all his what's the word, anyway, make all his wishes known. We get his instructions according to the scripture and in song, to make our wants and wishes known unto him. That is, that's what was said. And so we encourage fathers and mothers, don't lose heart. You know, the children, the child or the children may have caused you grief and sorrow, but so have we all caused grief and sorrow to the heart of our Mashiach, our principal head. And therefore we are encouraged to, be kind kindly affection one to another, so says the Apostle Shaul, I believe. Be tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Yahweh Elohim, for the sake of the Mashiach, has forgiven us and granted unto us his Ruach. You got to get that. The blessed Ruach, whereby we are sealed to the day of redemption. And so, in bringing in the thought on the book of Anukh, I remind you that we have yet to go in depth into our book of Anukh, but we're taking small bits and pieces as we move along until until we are able to have clearance to really dive in. I have gotten great pleasure from hearing brothers, our brothers, open up the book of Anukh. Does my heart so much good. Has lifted my ruach so well, tremendously, to hear brothers, entering the book of Anukh and breaking down the revelation. This is beautiful, and to be encouraged. Maybe by the time I would think to be more wordy in my speaking. Maybe the revelation might be finished or completed. I mean, according to the time sequence. So I encourage my brothers who are doing the breakdown on Anukh. It's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. I love it. I love to see it happening in the midst of us. All the brethren, all the camps of Yasha Allah could get down off their high horse of serving the evil one. Yeah, we've done it. We were left to be trampled and beaten and bruised because of turning away from the Most High, our Father. So he wasn't short on putting the chastisement. And you see how so many have chafed at his reproof and counsel and have turned away completely. According to the scriptures, 2/3. I forget the book, Zephaniah maybe. 2/3 couldn't take or wouldn't set themselves by prayer and fasting and seeking unto the Most High to have him, outfit them, as Apostle Shaul says, with the whole armor of Elohim to be able to stand in the evil day. Oh, his chastisement was like no other. Those outside of Yasha who might want to have negative words to say, nevertheless, it is us, we of the 12 tribes, who experience the weight of his hand and his chastisement. And we know what it is. It is no way that you could fool us to tell us it was something different. We know whereof we were chastised 400 years by his allowance for our correction in righteousness. And look what he says. In all their affliction, he was afflicted. I think that's in the book Isaiah. In all our affliction, he was afflicted. And as the enemies have been allowed to take us, send us, push us, drive us out of our homeland, the Most High also left the homeland to share our experience of becoming fugitives from the land that is ours, the land that has been forever granted unto Abraham and to his seed, which seed you are, if you be faithful to the cause. Um, and so here we have the wonderful institution of prayer. And we encourage you, brothers, sisters, young ones, young men, young sisters, daughters, our babies, teach them how to hear the Torah. This is the time that for our instruction as we prepare to meet our King in his coming. We have enough themes to occupy our thinking. We have had enough brutality, done to us that will provide themes of memorization concerning our condition. It's unforgettable. Indeed, unforgettable. 400 years. And so we see that the chief enemy, Gabriel, with his sons, Esau and Levi, Amy, all that witchcraft that they have been working, and they're trying to turn back the hands of time. Can't do it. Moses didn't give you that power. If he gave it to you, I mean, you came close to achieving some success. Oh yeah, you achieve a whole lot of success in terms of what you wanted to do to destroy us. But the Most High cut short the days and threw you into a panic mode that you shall not recover from. And we thank him in the Mashiach for being on our side. What does the psalmist say? If it had not been Yahweh that was on our side, now may Yasha Allah say, in spite of the fact that we have enemies inside, within the ranks of the 12 tribes, dangerous, scurrilous, and destructive enemies who are children of the cradle. the cradle of love. For Yahweh so loved the world. Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I remind you that it is for the life that he has granted unto us. And in the scriptures it says in the word first, second, third, Yohanan, that Elohim has given us life. This is the record that we bear witness of, that Elohim has given us life, and this life is in his Son. This is the life that we have been made the receivers and the bearers of such destructive forces against us, because our captors and our enemies wanted the life which they rejected, that was offered as a birthright offering. At the beginning, in the book of Bereshit, chapter 25, life was offered and refused. And all along the passage of time, the teaching, preaching, and admonition of the word of Torah promoted by his witnesses. You remember the word? Ye are my witnesses, says Yahweh, that I am. There's none else beside me. As faithful witnesses. And many who were, according to the book of Hebrews, sawn asunder, face cruel trials of cruel mockings and perils of sword. And according to the blessing of our father Yitzchak upon Esau, his blessing was the sword. But let's look for a few minutes at our father Yitzchak. How do we see him in our mind? We might wonder, what was he thinking about when he split the birthright offering so that Esau could have a part of it? Was his love subverted by his fatherly affection for Esau? This is something that we could take a lesson from as fathers and mothers to whom it applies. How is it, or it seems, that our father Yitzchak should have had a better understanding of the interior life of his sons? Quite a tall order. Hey, yeah, it's a family affair, says Sly and the Family Stones. It's a family affair, but it's worth our contemplation, because it appears that Yeshak was so, maybe I could use the word, thunderstruck by his affection for Esau, that he apparently lost touch with the undercurrent of personality as was displayed by Esau. And eventually offering the birthright in part unto a brutal, unforgiving destroyer of the birthright itself, birthright blessings. It was used by Esau for a tool of destruction, whereas it was offered as a blessing of life, a blessing of prosperity and provision. You know, there's so many comforting ideas that we can put in the mix to show how well pleasing it should have been to Esau that Father Yitzchak slice off a portion of the blessing for him. Didn't want it from the beginning. And when offered a, a chance to receive a portion of birthright and show forth a character of righteousness in the managing of it, Esau failed miserably. Until this day, he has failed, except by his conniving strategies to make room for him to further the works of Gadriel and all the evil ones. So all he was careful to do, but not to promote the kingdom of Yahweh and the Mashiach. And it's just, I guess, a side note to the subject, a view that might engage us and cause us to think of our parenting styles, in our showing of love to our children. I mean, how is it that you could have an outright murderer in your brood of children, your little chicks? You have an outright murderer in the bunch, and you not know it. It's only a thought. I mean, albeit a serious thought. Perhaps it will help us as parents to be more careful in the rearing of our children and the guarding of their mental and social outlook. And we ourselves as parents could take an overhaul of our own personality and receive correction from the word of the Most High going forward. And so, until next time, May the Most High bless and keep you, Yasha Allah. And those who are making their way in to the kingdom out of the nations, welcome. You only have to know that it is Hamashiach who died, yea, and is risen again, and is set at the right hand of the majesty of the heavens, expecting till his enemies are made his footstool, a footstool for his feet. May the Most High bless and keep you all, Yasha Allah, and those seeking to make their way in. It's a good time to make your way in. May bless and keep you. May cause his face to shine upon you, upon Yasha Allah, and upon those who are seeking to become a part of the redeemed. May he lift the light of his countenance upon you, give you peace, gives you shalom. It's our prayer. So let it be.